Until people in this country and people in this world get it into their heads that the first modern human beings that evolved on this earth were black women. They evolved in sub-Saharan Africa about 280,000 years ago, and every human being on the face of the earth today has the memory of those black women's genetic structure in their genes. Now, we don't want to admit that, but that's the way it is. And as people moved farther and farther from the equator, their bodies produced less and less melanin, so their hair, their skin, and their eyes got lighter. As they moved into the east, they ate a lot of fish and a lot of vegetables, so their skin took on a different tone.
What's up there, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. So whenever you see Jane Elliott on your screen, just know there is some juice to be served. So I don't want to waste so much of your time. I want us to go straight to listen more to what she has to say. And at the end of that video, we will have a few things to take home. So your ears open and your senses wide open. Get yourself a pen and a paper and let's learn. So without wasting any much of your time, let's first listen in.
People who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a third grade teacher in a country school in Riceville, Iowa, and I am here at the NAACP speaking because the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed by a society that hated him because he was going to change the economic situation in this country, I did an exercise in discrimination with my third grade classroom to let my little third graders, all white, all Christian children, find out how it feels to be something other than white in the United States of America. I split them according to the color of their eyes and treated those who had the wrong color eyes for the day the way we have traditionally treated blacks, Native Americans, Asians, all those Jews, all those who are different in appearance or in religion. And we learned more that day than I wanted to know.
What did that study show you?
Oh, it showed me a lot of things. Number one, it showed me that racism is a learned response. Nobody's born a bigot. You have to teach bigotry, and that's what we do in this country. I found out how it feels to be on the receiving end of racism because I'm blue-eyed, and the brown-eyed children were on the top in that first day. And I found out how it feels to be treated badly by people over whom you have power because of having the wrong color eyes. I found out how it feels to be subjected to unbelievable and unreal discrimination because of a physical characteristic over which I had no control. I thought I knew about racism. I thought I knew about child psychology. I knew nothing. All I knew was what I had learned in school. And what I had learned in school was not education. What I got in school wasn't education. It was indoctrination. I was taught how to be a good American citizen. And in this country, we think that the only Americans are the ones who live in the contiguous 48 states of the United States. Americans are everybody from the very north tip of Canada to the very southern tip of South America. But we, in our arrogance, say that we are the only Americans. If you're really going to keep this America to Americans, we don't dare build a wall on the southern border of the United States, because those people, those brown-skinned people that are going to come across that border are Americans. Now, we'd better choose our language or choose our behaviors. Let me tell you something. It wasn't a study, and it wasn't an experiment. I don't experiment with children without their knowledge or their permission. It was experiential education. It was giving a child an experience for the purpose of changing their brain. And that's exactly what it does every time I do it.
Now, you conducted the same study, I'm sorry, not study.
Exercise.
Exercise with adults.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And is it any different between the children and the adults?
Adults get more violent. I've been hit several times by white males, angry white males. I've had a knife pulled on me. They ran me out of Uniontown, Pennsylvania at midnight one night. 3 carloads of blacks did, to get me out of town because the teachers that I put through the exercise in a very limited way were so angry that they called the superintendent in the afternoon and said, if you don't get that bitch out of town, we're going to kill her. So they got me out of town. First time I've been scared. And the last time I've been scared. Because I found out that day that they could kill me, but they couldn't kill the idea. Victor Hugo said, no force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. The idea of one race, the human race, is an idea whose time has come. We are not going to be able to stop it, no matter what they do, They can elect Trump after Trump after Trump, and that will not stop the idea that there's only one race on the face of the earth. It's the human race, and we are all members of it. You and I are cousins. Now, if you don't like being my cousin, that's too bad for you. But we are all in the same family. We are members of the family of man.
You say that all whites are racist. Can you expound on that, please?
Any white person who was born, raised, and schooled in the United States of America, if you aren't a racist, you're a miracle. Either that or you decided to educate yourself. Because education in this country is about white is right, brown's all right, black's got to stand back. Yellow's mellow, but whites, we educate in a way that says that white males have done all the adventures, have made all the adventures, have done all the discovering, have made all, everything that is good and has been accomplished according to social studies, which is actually anti-social studies, by white males. It's a lie. But we do that in order to maintain the myth of white superiority. The myth of race has to be maintained at all costs in this country. Because if white people have to give up the color of their skin as being something that makes them perfect, what do they have left? If we start teaching the truth about history, if we start teaching about Nile Valley contributions to civilization, it will totally change the way we conduct ourselves in the classroom. It will have to. Columbus didn't discover America. You can't discover a place where people are already living. But we celebrate that every October. It's a lie. We need to get over, we need to stop telling the myths and start telling the truth.
So when you tell people that they're racist, and it must have some kind of effect, because most people will say, I'm not racist.
I'm not a racist. Why, some of my best friends are black.
Right.
Yeah, and then you say, name one. Or this one, I don't see color. And when some woman says to me, I don't see color, I say, I knew that. If you saw color, you wouldn't dye your hair that way. Or I say, if you saw color, you wouldn't wear that shirt with those pants. I believe that you don't see color. It's an attempt to deny skin color. And it's an attempt to deny what's wrong with seeing the color of my skin. Is it all right for you to see me kind of pink? That's okay for me. I don't mind. And I suspect that you don't mind being seen the color you are. You have a right to be what you are. And until people in this country and people in this world get it into their heads that the first modern human beings that evolved on this earth were black women. They evolved in sub-Saharan Africa about 280,000 years ago, and every human being on the face of the earth today has the memory of those black women's genetic structure in their genes. Now, we don't want to admit that, but that's the way it is. And as people moved farther and farther from the equator, their bodies produced less and less melanin, so their hair, their skin, and their eyes got lighter. As they moved into the east, they ate a lot of fish and a lot of vegetables, so their skin took on a different tone. I found that out when I was raising little kids. My husband worked in a supermarket. He was the head of the produce department. And they had lots of oranges that they couldn't sell, so he'd bring them home, and I was feeding my kids orange juice like you never saw in your life. They began to have an orange cast to their skin. I thought they had a liver problem. So I took them to the doctor, and she said, what are you feeding these kids? I said, well, lots of orange juice. She said, stop it if you want them to stop being orange. Now, if you think that skin color isn't anything other than the body's natural reaction to the natural environment, get over it.
So if all white people are racist, according to you, can they be reprogrammed?
Of course they can. Of course they can. Of course they can be. It's called education. I'm an educator. The word educator comes from the root duc dus, which means lead, the prefix e, which means out, the suffix ate, which means the act of, and the suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. Now, I know you can change them. The second year I did the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise in my classroom, it was filmed by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. They gave me a copy of that film. I showed it to my father. My father was about 59 years old at the time. He's been a farmer all his life. He raised six kids, lost one, raised six. Watched that film as a 59-year-old man. When it was over, he stood up, and with tears in his eyes, he took his red handkerchief out of the back pocket of his overalls, his bib overalls, and said, I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old. Nobody had dare say to me, this doesn't work, this is too harsh, this isn't necessary, you can't teach an old dog new tricks because they're wrong. You can teach an old dog new tricks. You can teach people to give up the myth of race.
All right, welcome back to this. So, if you're really sitting there and you think the color of your skin makes you a better human being, then you're probably the most ignorant person there is that exists really. The color of your skin has nothing to do with you being a better human being or otherwise. So Jane Elliott believes that any white person born and educated in America is inevitably a racist person unless you have taken the initiative to educate yourself like she did it herself. And I say that racism is an enterprise, is a business, is a mess, is a responsibility, is an initiative of white people. Black people have never and are not racist. Anything that comes close to that with black people is that we react. It is just a reaction to an action, which the action is racism. So when you discriminate me, I also learn to react to that situation. So there is nothing like counter racism. Um, Now, there's nothing wrong with anyone's skin color. I am proudly of my skin color, the so-called black, very proud black African boy. I don't see any problem with someone else being a different shade or a different skin color from mine. That is until we are making as human beings, we are making a business out of our skin colors. I am only black because I need more melanin because I'm adapted to where I live. Better still, if you come from a warmer region, then it is just natural that in your closet I'm likely to find less warm clothes compared to a person who lives in Siberia in Russia, the coldest place on the planet. And I'm likely less to find shorts and light clothes for in a closet for a person in Siberia. And none of those two people is wrong and none is right than the other. No, it is just natural that we human beings or we as organisms adapt to our environments. That is simply put the whole concept of black and white. Some people don't need melanin because they don't have a lot of use for that, and others need more, need that, and so they adapt to have more. I don't know what we have learned from Jane Elliott, but I have a few points. Maybe if you have some with you, but maybe we can go through what I personally took note of. So Jane Elliott insists that racism is learned. You learn it. No kid is actually born with the biases like racial discrimination. We learn these things. And that's true. No kid is born with um, any kind of bias, with any hate inherently in them. We teach, we acquire, we get perceptions, so on and so forth. So we teach our kids to become racist. So it is possible to teach them not to become racist. Not our kids, but those that are racist. Because black people, I don't believe we are racist, but we react to racism in ways that other people describe us as racist. Education that we consume today, there's another point I have noted from Jane Elliott. So, education, she says, education that we consume today isn't just education to pull out ignorance from our system, but it is a form of indoctrination, 100%. Because look at it from a perspective of the African systems of education. They are so whitewashed. to a point that people in Africa know more about Europe than they are told about their very own continent of Africa. This indoctrination. It is made to glorify Europe at the expense of Africa. Again, white racists will do anything in their power to maintain racism. Why? Because I have always said that racism is an enterprise. It is a business, a running business that not only makes them money in billions or trillions, but also gives them a false sense of elevated status socially and even economically, right? And Jane Elliott also continues to say, if we start teaching the truth, if we start telling the truth about the true beginning of civilization, then white supremacy and the white imperialist and the white racist will have nothing left to brag about. Because how much are we told about the inventions of black people? In one of my videos, we went through a small list of inventors in the black American community that we hardly are taught about, that we black people don't even have an idea who they are. It's everything is whitewashed. And this whole concept of what, I get to ask myself many times, what did we black people do to be hated so much by other people? We didn't colonize anybody. We didn't steal anybody, because white people stole resources and keep stealing resources and people. We didn't vandalize anyone's country. We don't start wars in other people's territories. So why the hate? It's not actually a hate for black people per se. And you would be surprised that the most indoctrinated people when it comes to this white supremacy thing are people that don't even know anything about black people, don't even know black people in person. But by proxy, by extension, they acquire the kind of hate, because when the concept of whiteness and white supremacy was being constructed into our heads, they pumped a certain narrative of a binary understanding of humanity. One is the opposite of another. Black is the opposite of white. Now then, what is the opposite of yellow? What is the opposite of green? What is the opposite of blue? If one color means the opposite of another, then give us the opposites of all colors. How can one human being really be an opposite of another human being if it is not propaganda? But they have to keep it going, because if they don't, if they tell us the truth about black inventions that they stole from us, that we didn't get a chance to patent, if they tell us about the beginning of civilization in the Nile Valley in Egypt, in Africa, if they tell about this prosperity and the lack of poverty as it is in Africa before the coming of the white person into Africa, then there will be nothing that they can tell us about anymore. So they have to keep maintaining that narrative, so they have something to cling on to give them that self-esteem, an elevation of some sort. That's a very intriguing, thought-provoking, and educative video by Jane Elliott. Jane Elliott is one wonderful, wonderful lady. And I always say I have immense respect for white people that are ready to handle the truth. Why? Because racism is their mess to clean. So they need to come out clean and tell everybody and tell the world what really happened, what really happens, because it is time for them as white people to actually take responsibility, whether they're the one who have begun that or by their ancestors. At one point in time, someone has to take responsibility of this whole concept. Thank you very much for your time. Please do share with me what you have learned from this video, maybe in the comments. And give this video a thumbs up and share this video. But most importantly, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, I would definitely ask and request you to hit that subscribe button to be part of us. So until next time, I would be happy, really happy to see you in my next video. Peace out.